All right, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to Canadian Islander Fan. My name's Terry. I'll be your host for today. I'm very excited to you. I'm coming to you live from Vancouver Island, Canada, BC, and I'm having my first ever guest podcast with me. This is exciting for the Canadian people who are going to be watching this channel because I have a real live Long Island person here. Me and George have known each other for almost 20 years on the message boards and whatnot. And I got the opportunity pre-COVID. I just slipped out there in time in New York to get him 4 games. And I finally got to meet George in person after years and years and years of posting on message boards. Welcome, George. How are you doing today?
Terry, I'm doing great. Loving your new show. I follow every single one.
I love that picture in your background there. Beautiful.
That would be our new arena.
It's gorgeous.
Yes, arena.
And did you get season tickets?
Did not, but I am lucky to have many friends who have.
Yes, indeed. But one of the reasons why you probably didn't get season tickets, maybe explain a little bit of what you got going on with hockey right now with the boys and everything.
Yeah, sure. So I have 2 boys. One's in college. The other one's a senior in high school. My older boy is playing college. He's playing for Farmingdale. He's 2 games into the season, into his college hockey career. He's doing pretty good so far.
7 points in 2 games.
7 points in 2 games.
I'll say it if you weren't gonna brag for him. I'll do it for you.
Thank you. He's actually getting the crowd. At the first game, there was a pretty decent crowd, probably about 300 people there, and he was getting people out of the seats. He was flashing his moves that his dad told me years ago. So, and again, 7 points, 2 games, so a good start for him. My son last night, my other son, who's a goalie, he's a crazy kooky kid, so he fits in right with the goalie mentality. He actually played in a high school game, and he had 61 shots on net and saved 57 of them. So he had a pretty good night, high quality opportunities. And he actually came out of it with a loss 4-2, but he kept them in there, I'll tell you that. So it was between that, he plays travel hockey too with the Long Island Royals, which is a very big travel organization on Long Island.
So you're a parent with not a whole lot of spare time. So I really appreciate you getting enough time to come on this podcast. I just want to explain to everybody else out there, with talking to George after all these years, I immediately noticed his hockey knowledge, and we have hit it off very well, and we think a lot alike. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have George on the podcast today. And what we're going to be doing today is we're mostly going to be concentrating on Lou Lamoriello's off season, the Godfather. We're going to see how he did. A lot of people said he was too old when we hired him. He was over the hill, couldn't do anything, but he's riding back-to-back GM of the Year awards right now. But before we do that, George, we're gonna take a quick trip down memory lane of what we as Islanders fans went through. Oh, there's one thing I want to know now. When did you start cheering for the Islanders?
Yeah, so I was actually born on Long Island in 1972, which coincides with the inaugural year of the New York Islanders.
Yes.
Hockey family in terms of, my brother, my father, my cousins, they all love the sport and kind of made me a hockey fan. So it's a perfect fit. Hockey fan on Long Island, same year the Islanders came in their inaugural year. I was born to become an Islander fan.
That's awesome. Awesome. Yep. It was so exciting being there with you guys. It was amazing. You can imagine my experience. I've been in Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, watching the Isles, and Saskatoon. And I'm so used to walking in with all the other jerseys in the concourse and everything. And just to look around and see all the orange and blue, I was absolutely in heaven on my visit down to New York. It was just, I'm surrounded by Islander fans. I really have been on an island, quote, even though I'm on Vancouver Island by myself in Canada here. And over time, I'm just gonna let people know through the podcast the point of view of how Islanders come across in Canada. However, I don't know if you've been checking the predictions this year. Wow.
Harry, what is going on? It's like the world is upside down.
I honestly don't know how to handle it. I really don't. It's
What was the one term that the media would usually refer to
the
the
low,
lowest,
lowly,
hapless Islander fans,
the
Islander
lowly
teams?
Islanders,
The
the
lowly
lowly
Islanders. That's
Islanders.
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Then
That's
we
how they've
get
been known for years in Canada.
every once in a while we got a pesky Islanders thrown in there.
That's true. That's true. And that was the highest compliment ever.
That's right.
So for them to turn this around and predict that the Islanders might go very far, the world's upside down, Terry. I don't get it.
So do you think other fans around the continent really understand what we went through as Islander fans?
Well, I think the Buffalo fans are starting to understand that right now.
I made a post on that. Somebody made a post on it and they said, well, Buffalo's pretty much where we were. And I go, they're only a third of the way through. 10 years. They got
They
another
only get a
20 to
little
go.
taste of it. We had decades of it, so
That's right.
they're not quite there yet, but they're getting a taste.
It's a solid taste. It's a solid taste for sure.
It's pretty
They're
bad there right now.
So anyway, to give the people who are watching out there tonight a little view of what we went through, we're going to do a very quick synopsis of what Mike Milbury and the general managers before Lou Lamoriello did. So we're gonna pick it up at the Mike Milbury area. And what do you remember about Mike, George?
Wow, Mike Milbury. You bring that name out amongst many Islander fans, and it's going to bring out a lot of anger. I got to be honest. I am one of the few Islander fans. I wouldn't say I liked Mike Milbury, but I think with what he had to deal with, I don't think he was as bad as the fans told him he was. So, there was definitely some doozy of bad trades he made. Some he was forced into by management, but he also had some bad ones on his own as well. A couple of decent moves within there a little bit, but for the most part, Milbury was not maybe the most likable GM in Islander history.
I actually liked him. I liked him, and I liked when he was hired. I got all excited when he got hired because I remember that time and we sucked, right? And Mike came on board. I mean, we had Rick Boness as one of our coaches, and I still think he's the worst Islander coach ever. But
I agree. Well, but Butch is up there too. Butch is up there too with the dump and chase hockey every play.
We give Butch a hall pass.
We do.
But yeah, I was actually pretty excited about him, and he seemed like he was right into the Islanders and whatnot. But man, oh man, there are some doozies, like you said. And I too also believe that a lot of it was forced. What can you do, right?
Yeah, management kind of had those purse strings a little tightly held there. Forced them into that Ziggy Palffy trade, which was, probably, I think, in my opinion, one of the worst, if not the worst.
Agreed.
But then you also, you have the trades like the Yashin trade that people really don't like. Of course, the Kavasha Parish trade.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we do a little game here? From our Mike Milbury memories and I'll give you one trade or whatever you want to bring up, and I'll fire back right after you.
Yeah, let's go right to the that one trade that I was just referring to.
Killer.
Comes to bringing in Kavasha and Parish. I'm sorry for that pick to get DiPietro was really not worth it, was it?
No. I was so stunned by that. I mean, what we had the possibility of setting up for the DiPietro one, that's the one that gets me the most, is we were literally setting up for a rebuild. It was there right in front of our eyes. And what do? We have a fantastic goaltender in Luongo. I followed this guy and I knew he was going to be a great goaltender. And I think I lost George for a bit. Oh, there you are. Okay. You froze. Yeah, you froze for a little bit. So yeah, saying we already had a goaltender in Luongo, and then we ended up with the first and fifth pick, right? So there's Gabrick and there's Heatley sitting there. So we forget that trade. We take either Gabrick or Heatley. We got Luongo in net. We got Jokinen still on the team. I mean, there's the start for your rebuild right there. That one was I was devastated that draft day. I remember that. I was in Medicine Hat at the time, and I was absolutely devastated.
To this day, DiPietro is the only goalie ever taken number 1 overall, I believe. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, no, Fleury did later.
You're right. Fleury did. That's correct. Yeah. That's correct.
Yeah. But I think they're the only two.
Yeah, they're the only two. DiPietro was the first. And we all know what happened in terms of his injuries. And then ultimately, that 15-year contract, which obviously never lived up to its billing. So it's a disaster.
I still don't think he would have been as good as Luongo, even if he had stayed healthy. I really don't. So we would have been better off to just keep Luongo. So anyway, I'll fire back one at you then. Being from 2-hour ferry ride from Vancouver, a killer for me was Trevor Linden for Brian McCabe and Todd Bertuzzi. Oh, man. Oh.
Yeah, I think that's the second worst. I think we hit on both of them there. The Palffy one was bad too, but he kind of was forced into that one. That was, I believe, second as well. At the time, what they were thinking was that they needed a captain on Long Island, and Trevor Linden was that man. So they thought. It just didn't turn out as well as they thought it would. No. And that really, they sent two big pieces of talent the other way. That could have been good foundational pieces for their future. And unfortunately, obviously, that did not work out. Linden would leave shortly after. I mean, very brief stay on Long Island. And that trade really, really hampered them for a while.
Yeah, big time. That was around when we drafted the 4 Redwoods too, right? Weren't they referred to as the Redwoods? The great defense we were going to have. Oh, man. How did you feel about I'll tell you personally from my side of things, when we traded for Yashin and Pekka, I don't look at those as bad because we'd went through such misery in the 90s. It was time to do something. Would you not agree?
Well, we completely agree on that. That was a time where they said, you know what? We're going to get some good pieces away, but you know what? We need to start winning. We've had a drought for many, many years now. And that really instantly put them in with under Laviolette. It made them pretty much, contenders, at least for playoffs. And, we all know what happened in their first year or two. They did pretty well. They could have went further. They almost did. But you know what? Yashin, say what you want about him, but, he was coming off of a 100-point season with Ottawa. You had Pekka coming in, who solidified this second line center spot. It was a very good two-way forward. And that was really the foundation to build around those two. And they did. And, they had pretty, mild success, I would say. And you know what? It put fans back in the seat, which was the big thing. And fans started rooting for the Islanders again. And that helped. That definitely helped.
Yeah, for sure. As a matter of fact, that was the first year that I got center ice. So it was the very first time I ever got to watch the Islanders play every game. And if you remember, the year before, we sucked. And all of a sudden I walk into 11-1-1-1 on center ice. And I'm going, this is great. This is awesome. Watching Osgood with his red pads on and everything.
Pekka with an overtime goal to keep that streak going around like game 10 too, or something like that. Yeah. It was fun. It was a good start to that season. They had a little bit of a lull, but they came back. Yep. And it was a good season. It was an exciting season.
We had a little
needed something like that.
Yeah, we had a little 3-year period there where we had a little bit to go off of and whatnot. But anyway, we could spend hours upon hours on Mike Milbury podcast. So let's move on to Garth Snow. Hold on a second. What about Neil Smith and his 40 days?
So Neil Smith coming in, and that is when Charles Wangton decided, hey, let's do actually GMing by committee.
The module plan.
You had guys that you weren't sure if they were in the committee or not. Like LaFontaine was there. He wasn't there. He went upstate. Everyone's like, where's LaFontaine? I had no part of this. Me and Molly, I think they listed him as part of the committee. I think Trotz was in there too as well. And Neil Smith, in his cup of tea, did not like that he had to actually answer to this committee.
No, and I wouldn't either.
I can't blame him.
I wouldn't either.
He had a couple of draft day deals. He actually did the draft. The only good thing that came out of it, and some might argue this, was that he drafted Kyle Oposo, who I admired. It was a very good player for us for quite some time. And they did not want to, the people above did not want him to draft Oposo. And he actually turned around and said, no, I want this kid. And he turned out to be right on that. Because if you look at that draft, underneath Oposo, you get into the third round. Believe it or not, Marchand, I think, was taken in the third round there, that draft. Man.
Yeah.
But really, outside of Marchand, a couple of lower picks, in that first round, it shows he really was the right pick at that level. So he was right on that one. And Oposo was a good Islander for many years.
Oh, for sure. I loved Posto. I always said in 40 days, Neil did more than most of our general managers have done for us. At least his record was pretty much perfect, right?
It was perfect.
Gone. Like he wasn't even here for the start of the season, was he?
No, he was not.
He's gone. He
was not.
Just off season. That was it. So as a Canadian, being an Islander fan, one of the very worst moments of my fandom in Canada would be when Garth Snow was hired. Oh, did they have a heyday with me, my friends? Let me tell you. You got a goaltender, a backup goaltender for your GM, do you? Oh, face palm.
It was a very embarrassing day, Terry, not just for you in Canada, Long Island too. Let's not forget who actually resides on Long Island besides Islander fans.
Yes,
the Ranger fans. So we took much abuse to that. I can't, I can't blame him. You can't blame him for giving us some grief over that. Garth Snow, Charles Wong in his wisdom, behind his one decision where he wanted to hire a sumo wrestler as a goaltender. This might be right behind it in terms of his thought mentality of how to build a team was to hire a general manager who was a backup goaltender for them. Okay.
For people who don't know, we've also had an owner that I had more money in my back pocket right now than he had. So he was a fraud. He went to jail. Then we had Sanjay Kumar. He went to jail. Two of the four horsemen, I think, went to jail, or three? Or all?
Two.
Two?
Did Gluck, Stern, and that group, did they go into jail too? They might have. I don't know. I don't know.
I've been trying to forget it. But ironically for me, the Garth Snow era started really well. I thought that was one hell of a trade that he made at the trade deadline deal for Ryan Smith, crying Ryan, even though he went kicking and screaming. All those 3 rounders that we traded off turned out to be nothing, which one of those first rounders should have been Zach Parise, but he wasn't, and was Nielsen instead.
Robert Nielsen.
Yeah. So I was actually pretty impressed in that first year, because I don't know if you remember, but the Islanders came out of left field on that one. Nobody was expecting the Islanders to get Ryan Smith.
Nobody was expecting to get him, including Ryan Smith. But it gave them that boost that, hey, we have a real hockey guy, and a guy that is so well respected throughout the NHL. And that got a lot of attention. And you know what? Give Snow credit for that. I got to be honest.
Absolutely.
At first, I wasn't sure about that. I actually liked Robert Nielsen. I was dead wrong about him.
We all have our guys.
But it turned out it was the right move. It gave them credibility. And, and Smith was a good hockey player.
He was.
I think it was hard-nosed. That was the only problem with Smith. He didn't last too long because his body took a beating from the type of game that he plays. He plays an Anders Lee game, but he's not built like Anders Lee. So he broke down, but for the time being, that was the right decision at the right time.
I felt so sorry for Ryan Smith. I think he was the Team Canada captain 7 years in a row in the World Cup because his team never made the playoffs. So I felt kind of bad for him. So where did Garth go wrong?
Where did Girth go wrong? Well, you always have to wonder the person behind him,
Right.
who again is with those purse strings. What's going on there? I really think that he had a very, very low budget to work from,
I
and that
agree.
kind of hampered him. What else hampered him? Well, I think what also hampered him was that he did not have the respect that other GMs had because he was a backup
Right.
goaltender.
Yeah.
And I think people didn't take him seriously. But you know what? He made some shrewd moves during the course of his tenure.
He did.
And you got to give him credit there. But I think what ultimately, because there was a couple of years there where they were trying to go with vets, and they were trying to, they were making playoffs a little bit, and they had a little taste of it. But damn well, those teams were not going anywhere. So at a certain point, at least he had the wherewithal to say, you know what? I think we need to draft well. We need to start really getting good draft picks. And sure enough, the fruit of those moves is bared right now in our team right now. So, he really helped the foundation of our team. Think about it. I think it's, if you look at the roster right now, out of 27, if you add in, the new guys that are on, I think Bellows is on the roster right now. You have a bunch of guys that are coming in and out. If you count it, it's about 27 players. 16 of those players were drafted by Garth Snell.
Yeah.
And we're not successful.
You could probably throw in Wallstrom and Dobson into that list too, as well.
That's true. That's correct. That's correct. So he helped, and he needs credit there. He definitely needs credit because he did a very good job of drafting. There was a couple of drafts where he actually had stolen some guys, and look at where he got Anders Lee. Lee dropped, because they thought he was going to be a quarterback.
Girth had his problems in the 1 to 5 range. Get beyond 5, and he was pretty good.
That's correct. He was deeper in the drafts is where he had some steals and foundational pieces that are on that team right now.
He had some good move ups as well in the draft with trade ups to get what he needed and whatnot. And for everybody who freaked out when we drafted Bailey really was the only one from that, other than the 3 big defensemen. Well, 2 out of the 3 big defensemen that did well. So Bailey is really number 3 in that draft overall from everybody that came through it. So even that was a good move by Garth, but Garth still took a lot of flack for a lot of his moves that he made. And he's the master of the floor of the cap, not the high part, like what we're trying to deal. But he came up with a lot of things for Wong to save money, to make money.
Correct.
But
we had to.
Yeah. I always laughed at people who always say, well, why did Garth do it? He doesn't have to do it. I said, if you want a job, you do what your boss says. And I think a lot of that was coming from Wong. So, however, people talk about Wong was crazy. Like you mentioned the sumo wrestler and all that. Don't forget, Charles is the one who brought up the playoff between 8 and 9. And now if you take a look over at Major League Baseball,
it's true.
And they're talking about it in the NHL right now. And everybody laughed at him. But all of a sudden now Charles has passed on, and now they're bringing it up. Nobody mentions it. Charles brought it up that time. We have had a very weird franchise, my friend.
Well, listen, Terry, if they put a sumo wrestler in goal for next season, then we'll really know that things have gone upside down. I'm not sure if that prediction will come about, but you're right. He did. And you know what? Speaking of Charles Wong, you also got to give him credit. He actually paved the way to Belmont. For as much as the quirky things that he did over the years, he did care about the Islander fans.
Oh, absolutely.
He did want that lighthouse project, and it was because of Kate Murray, who the town of Hempstead supervisor, who actually brought that down because she didn't want to provide the zoning for it. If that didn't happen, he would have had the lighthouse there, but he didn't stop. And years went by. He wanted a permanent spot. And it's him really that paved the way for UBS Arena. And you know what? You got to give him credit for that. He did care about the Islander fans, as quirky as he was and as cheap as he was at certain points. Ultimately, the Islanders finally have a new home.
Right. I couldn't agree more. I had a lot of people tell me that, oh, Charles doesn't care. He doesn't care. Well, you remember the year we had the training camp out in Saskatoon? I went to almost the entire training camp, and guess who's there? Charles Wong. You don't go to Saskatoon, Canada without loving your hockey team. I'm telling you that there's no other reason to go to Saskatoon, Canada. Hey, don't come at
There's
me,
no
Pete.
palm trees there, and it's not 95 degrees.
Well, there's trees, but they're man planted. In Saskatchewan, you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. That's how flat it is out there. Let me tell you. All right, so let's get to the man of the hour. Let's go. Once again, we could spend 100 hours talking about Darth Snow, 100 hours talking about Milbury, but we're here to talk about Lou Lamoriello and what he did this off season for the Islanders and whatnot. And there was a pretty big scare going into this season about that we were supposed to be our worst cap year. It was predicted almost 2-3 years ago. Oh, we're going to be in trouble this year. So we're going to go through what Lou did. And we're going to go back to 2018 when he first got hired on the, 5th of June. And to me, his two biggest, most important signings or moves right off the bat were Barry Trotz, getting him in there. And that's a no-brainer. But Steve Pellegrini, I hope I'm saying that name correctly, Pellegrini. Anyway, he's our capologist. He's assistant GM. So he's our capologist. And once we get to the end of what Lou did this offseason, you're going to see how important Steve really was. So
I was just going to say that.
So
you look at some of the moves even today. I think they're $6,000 under the cap right now, and they made lots of strange decisions. And everyone is probably scratching their heads, saying, "What are they doing? Wait, this one's waived, that one's." He's on the roster, but you know what? They made it work somehow, and like Houdini, he was an excellent addition. As the capologist of the team, and Lou is he's the godfather. He knows what he's doing. He knows. Don't question Lou. Lou knows what he's doing when it comes to these little things.
I knew exactly what he was up to with like people, other places I read and stuff. They go, oh, you need to get rid of Leo, and I go, no, we need Leo's $3 million right now. He may not be there tomorrow, but we need him right now. And a lot of times the casual fans, they don't understand that stuff, right? And myself, I'm just understanding the cap myself a little bit here. So I'm starting to get a grasp on it.
And it's been stagnant for a couple of years now. So
yeah,
they've had to get more and more creative in the last couple of years than they have, and they've done a wonderful job there. But backtracking.
Yep.
When he started out, listen, why I still can't figure out what the Nashville Predators were thinking, allowing Barry Trotz to go.
I know
that happened. I was, wow, the Islanders could get him, and a bad decision by Garth. Or maybe
I wanted him then too. I wanted him from Nashville.
Resign Capuano. Okay, I don't think that's going to work out so well, but we all know what will happen in Washington where he went. And he churned maybe the worst defensive forward in Alex Ovechkin into a good defensive forward. And that made a world of difference for that team. He instilled defense into that Washington Capital team, and that's how they won. That's the missing piece for them.
Yep.
And then the Washington Capitals wanted to squeeze him for $1 million or $2 million and not give him $5 million a year.
It was just mind-boggling.
Wow. And thank goodness we had Lou Lamoriello, who was smart enough and really used common sense to say, that's our new coach.
Yeah.
And that made a world of difference. It really did. It is the best transaction Lou Lamoriello has made to date.
Absolutely.
It might be one of the best transactions in Islander history, was to get him as the coach.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Do you remember I said when that trade happened, or not trade, but I'm thinking that as a trade, I said I would have made the trade JT straight up for Lamoriello.
Remember you saying that, Terry?
Or Trotz, either or.
1,000% correct on that.
1,000%. Unbelievable. So yeah, so we jump into his first year, and then right off the bat, he signs Valerie Philip. Philpla, Philpla. I don't know why I'm having
Valtteri
problems with
Filppula.
Philpla.
Valtteri
Yeah,
Filppula.
who actually had a pretty good year for us. He came storming out of the
Yeah.
gates, and he also signed Thomas Hickey to a 4-year contract. But that was a bone of contention with Hickey getting that 2.5 for 4 years. People might have thought it was a little long, but at that time, we have to remember that Lou really didn't know what he had here. So I fully believe he came in that first year thinking, okay, I'm just going to see what we got here. I'm going to, so Hickey's a good placeholder until we do a little bit of a rebuild here. In my mind, when he came in, I thought we were looking at a 1 to 2 year rebuild. No idea we were going to go to the playoffs and went around that year. No idea. So I'm thinking that was what was going through his mind. And then on the second, he signed Kuhnackel as well to a 1-year contract. And then he did a bunch of minor deals with Gibson, Helgenson, Laredo, and Sislo, but those guys are long gone. And then he promptly went out for more culture and brought back Matt Martin to us on the third for Eamon McAdam. Yeah.
You know, and Terry, he knew the type of player Matt Martin was because when they were in Toronto together, and Matt might not have felt like he got a fair shake there.
He didn't.
And, you know, there is, as you know, there's multiple layers of bureaucratic people in the Toronto Maple Leafs organization.
Geez, that's just a minor hockey. Minor hockey, there's enough political red tape to go through, for crying out loud. You can only imagine what it's like in the bigs.
You're going to have dissenting opinions when you have that. And it was quite clear that how Lou Lamoriello felt about Matt Martin. And for him to bring him back, it meant so much to this team. You know, this team loves him and looks to him as one of their leaders. He might not be the captain of the team, but you sure as know that the team really looks up to him as one of their leaders.
Well, he won the Nystrom Award so many times as well, but no doubt the turning point was Komarov and Matt coming back. The country club left when JT left. For those people who don't know, we used to refer to the Islander locker room before 2018 as a country club because everybody got away with whatever they wanted to do and just have fun and whatnot. And I made a comment about it in the bubble. John Tavares was the first person to go to management and say, we don't want to wear suits. And when we talk country club and that ain't going down with Lou. I believe we were the only team that went in suits, right? After that, all the other teams started following. So
that's correct.
There came the Islanders in their suit and ties, but that's the way we love it for sure. And then Lou makes a great signing, which I'm really happy about, with Robin Lehner.
What another player that was probably misunderstood. We all know about his history in terms of, he did have some history problems of mental issues, which he has actually come up and has been very upfront about with the public. But you know what? He was actually embraced by the Islander team. And not just the team, but the fans themselves ultimately. And he was a fantastic fit on the island.
Yeah, I agree. And he obviously loved it here. And I know that the fans helped him out immensely. He loved the fans at Long. He still talks about it. Well, and he outright says that Long Island was his favorite place to be. I felt bad for him not getting signed, but I understood why he didn't get signed. And I guess we'll get to that in a little bit later as we go on here. But yeah, I was super happy to get Lehner in the fold. As a matter of fact, I like Lehner in Ottawa. So
I did too. I saw a lot of talent in him back then.
Yeah, I did too.
Big goaltender, good reflexes, good on angles. He needed coaching though.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that we didn't talk about that Lamoriello who they brought in there.
Oh, Barry.
That's
a whole nother podcast. That's a whole nother
really
podcast right there about Barry. Maybe part 1, 2, 3, and 4.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah,
But you can't overlook, what they did
absolutely.
with Leonard and the rest of the goaltending.
Yeah. So then he makes another big move, but I guess we were all kind of expecting, brings in Lane Lambert. Love Lane Lambert as an assistant coach. As you know, I've been cheering for him. Sorry, Lane, if you ever end up watching this podcast, I keep cheering for you not to get the head coaching jobs of other places because I don't want you going anywhere from the island. I want you staying right here. We need you, buddy.
They're a great tandem.
Yeah.
Trotz and Lambert, they've had a major history there, and it continues on, and we're lucking out that he's not getting these head coaching jobs. I don't know what other teams are thinking, but we're the benefactor of that.
Yeah.
Great combination. And he has a lot to do with the systems that the Islanders have right now.
100%. I think one of the things about Lane, one of the things that might be hurting him now is a lot of teams have tried a lot of assistants lately and they've been falling through, but I just don't think they've picked the right guy. I think Lane's the guy. I really do. I really do.
100% agree.
And then how about this move on the 9th, bringing in Jan Kovar? He's going to change our team. Who the hell is Jan Kovar? But we were hoping, weren't we? We were hoping maybe he'll be good. But I think he did a 3-team quick tour of the NHL and exit stage left for Jan. And then and this was also another controversial one, was signing Ross Johnson to a 4-year contract. $1 million a year.
Ross has been hanging around for a couple of years now. And you know what? He's been trying to get into that lineup. He might start the lineup on Thursday. It's looking like that. And you know what? Ross is an effective guy to fill in if a Matt Martin's injured, or if a Cal Clutterbuck can't go. He's effective there. And you know what? You and I have talked about it. Every training camp, how good does he look?
Yep.
And, sometimes that might not be sustainable through the year. He might need a little bit of a kick in the butt to get that energy he brings in the preseason.
Yeah.
But he's still an effective player, and he's still young, and he's still getting better.
Like I was saying to you, I think he just trains so well. I think he's just that little notch above everybody when he comes into camp, and I think that's why he starts out so strong. And then in his defense, all the games that Ross has ever gotten, the majority of the games that he's gotten have been in the first 10 to 20, like 0 to 20 games. So
it's a big layoff.
And then he comes back in. You expect him to be like he was at the start of the season, but give the guy a break, right?
Kind of hard to do that, isn't it, in the NHL?
Yeah, a lot of people didn't like it at the start, but I thought it was a great move, and I think you can see the job he's doing for Matt Martin in the preseason. Looked great filling in for him. So it's nice to have that back up there as well. Then we also signed Kyle Burroughs to a 2-year contract, and then Lou ties up Devin Taves on a 2-year contract.
Wonderful defenseman. Unfortunately, for cap reasons, the Islanders wind up losing him, but Taves did a commendable job. He actually came from Quinnipiac, was one of their star players. You knew he was talented, but you didn't know how that was going to translate to the NHL. And sure enough, it did. Talented offensive side, but you know what? He was pretty good defensively as well. He had to learn that a little bit, and he was getting better. And now you can see, when he's on the Avs right now, he's actually reliable two-way defenseman, and he's a good one.
Yeah. You followed him quite a bit before he got to the NHL, didn't you? You and Mark followed Quinnipiac?
Mark did. Mark followed.
Did.
He actually went to a bunch of those games with his sons, and he actually told us about them.
Right. That's where we were getting the info.
That's right. And he was right. He was very much right on that.
Right. And of course, Devin was a great signing as well. We might be able to talk about this another time, but by the end of time that Devin was here, I was calling him Nick Leddy Jr. because I just saw a younger clone of Leddy.
Yes.
Great offense and could skate like the wind and put some points up for you. Defense, not so good. But I watched him in Colorado last year. He wasn't bad after that. And then we get Brock Nelson signed to a 1-year contract. What's with the 1-year contract? Is that right? Did we only sign him to a 1-year contract in 2018? Why would we do that?
Yeah, that took a while to get that deal done, and I think that was just I guess like a bridge deal to get him
Yeah.
over to the next deal. Brock had proven himself somewhat, but you know what? There wasn't a lot of money to spare at that time, and I think that had a lot to do with it
Oh,
in
that's right. Yeah.
terms of. So I
Yeah.
think that was ultimately the reason, and they bridged it so that the next year they would have more money, and they did sign him to a multi-year deal after that.
Right. And then on July 26th, we have one of our biggest people come into our organization. Mitch Korn was named director of goaltending.
Yeah, we talked about Mitch before. Goes down maybe, right now is one of the best goaltending coaches of all
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, agreed.
You look at his resume; it is so impressive, the goaltenders that he's had and what he turned them into, and that did not change with the Islanders.
Right. And we can't forget Piro either. He's right in there. He's doing the actual hands-on stuff, and Mitch is kind of directing him. So
Correct.
yeah, we lucked out for sure. It's amazing how long we've actually been pretty good at goaltending. We have been solid for a long time, going right back to Halak and Grice. And ever since that time, we've been solid, and now we bring in Mitch, and now we're fantastic in goal. So that's been great. Then we signed Noah Dobson to a 3-year entry contract. So Noah was obviously one of our draft picks. So yeah, I guess we should talk about our draft picks. Don't actually have it here. So Oliver Wahlstrom and Noah Dobson went 11th and 12th in the draft. Lou kind of let the boys who were running the team last year kind of run the draft a little bit, but we know Lou. I'm sure he had some input, even though people don't think he did. But Lou's also smart enough to let the people know, or let a really good boss is somebody who trusts his people below him, and I think Lou did that and ended up coming out with the sweet draft. There was lots of possibilities in that draft. If you remember the Pacioretty possible trade and whatnot, those picks could have been gone.
It's a good point. And they held on to them, and it worked out really well because they wound up using them for different purposes that really helped.
Yep. Yeah, 100%, 100%. And then we assigned a bunch of guys in September. Durando, Jenkins, Bodie Wild, who was another nice pick. However, he's non-vaxxer, so he won't be around the NHL anytime soon unless he kind of changes his mind a little bit. And so that pretty much wraps up the off season as we're going into September. You got the minor deals, like where the people are being assigned to, like Dobson going to Acadia Bathurst and places like that. And then on September 24th, we had Lucas Spiza agree to a 1-year contract. So another placeholder.
They needed defensive depth at the time. Sabisa came in and did a pretty commendable job. I thought that was a pretty good signing. I don't think they gave up much for him. I want to say, was it a 3rd round pick, or actually they signed him. They signed him to a deal.
Yeah.
My bad. But Sabisa did a commendable job. Again, they needed that depth at the time.
Yeah, agreed. So that basically takes us into the season, except on October 13th was the beginning of the end for Andrew Ladd, as he got put on IR, and we're not going to see him very much other than that, except for maybe to give up, the winning goal in Game 6 against Tampa 2 years ago. Thanks, Andrew. You're the man, buddy.
Yeah. Nice parting gift, huh?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So we got a lot of things going on here. There's a lot of minor stuff that we're not going to talk about. We're kind of going to go right back into Lou's next offseason, which is 2019. And this is when Oliver Wahlstrom agrees to a 3-year entry-level contract, and Mason Jobs 2-year contract. Brock, big contract, 6-year contract. What do you think of that 6x6? I loved it.
Great deal. I think he had gone in the off season and he was playing for the Worlds at the time.
Yes, and he was on fire.
He was on fire.
Yeah,
he was getting a lot of people were noticing him in the NHL at that time. Say, this guy could play. We've all known it as Islander fans. One of the best wrist shots really in the league, if you think about it. He shoots, but What happened is that he was made by Barry Trotz into a good two-way player, and that's what they needed. And they got that out of him, and it changed his game. And you know what? He became a very effective player for the Islanders, and still is. So it was a very good deal. I think that's $6 million per year is very manageable, and you're getting production out of that. You're getting good production out of
For
that.
one of the top center, second line centers in the league, 6 million is a good deal. And then there was this one. I was happy with it. A little bit controversial with some Islander fans. Jordan Eberle signs a 5-year contract at 5.5 AAV.
I categorize that as another move that you had to make at the time.
Yes.
You needed offense. You couldn't afford to lose Jordan at the time. And Jordan's a very talented offensive player. It turns out at the end of the day, he might not be here, but he was a good offensive player for the Islanders.
Yep. I agree 100%. And then we named Jim Hiller as an assistant coach on, when was that? June 19th of 2019. So he joined the fold. And then on the 21st, the Islanders drafted Simon Holmstrom, 23rd overall.
Simon is, I was reading about him today. It sounds like, he's getting a little more encouragement in terms of what the organization feels about him. It sounded a little uncertain last year, but it sounds like they're starting to become a little more encouraged about his game. And we'll see what he does now this year in Bridgeport.
Well, we need to remember he's 20. Not many 18-year-olds go into the A, and they certainly don't light it up when they go in there unless you're sending a first-round overall pick down there, which we never do. So 20 is about the time that we would be expecting him to come over to the AHL anyway. If if he wasn't a European or if he was a Canadian or American, that's when they'd be entering into the AHL just now.
And you know what? He's going to have a tremendous opportunity there's not too many offensive players on that team on Bridgeport. They're going to look to him to provide a lot of that. So this will be a good test for him this year to see how much he's matured in the last couple of years. And you're right, Terry, he's only 20 years old. So sky's still a limit for the kid.
So who else did Lou grab? It looks like he grabbed in that draft Samuel Bolduc at 57, Reese Newkirk, who I know his mother very well, and cheering away for Reese, go, and Felix Bibeau and Cole Koski. And that was it for the 2019 draft. I think it was a pretty good draft. I know you're high on Bolduc.
Yeah, Bolduc is really shined last year in his first year in Bridgeport. Granted, they didn't play a ton of games, and they played only intra-division games last year. But he was, I believe, second or third in Bridgeport in scoring, made the AHL All-Star team. What's really impressive about him is that he's a two-way defenseman. Those are the types of defensemen that you just can't get enough of. Yeah. So sure, he's got the great slapper, the great clapper, I should say. But he skates really well. Skates like an Adam Pellick out there, and he's very reliable defensively. You bring that kid in the fold, he has a very high potential to be a very good NHL player.
I was just telling you the other day, I haven't seen Bolduc since junior, so I really don't know how he's been developing. I know he was good in junior when he was there, so I watched him and he was awesome. So yeah, all right. So then we signed the El Capitano Anders Lee for a 7-year contract, and Anders was really good about this, right? There was a bit of a scenario to signing Anders to this contract.
Yeah, I mean, 7 years. This really went very long. This process, and fans were getting pretty worried. I was a little worried what was happening too.
But what was going on behind the doors?
You're going to have to refresh my memory on this.
This is one where Anders is holding off because we're trying to sign Artemi Panarin. So he's given Lou all the leeway to sign Panarin, and then I'll sign for what's left over. Panarin doesn't sign, he gets his 7x7.
And you know what? It turned out to be okay.
Just another.
It turned out to be okay.
Just another great move by Lou, and that just shows you how much, especially once we get into this season, about off season, how much trust these players have in Lou's word. Unless they have something in writing, but I don't think there would be anything that would hold up. Like we'll get into it, but like what happened with Del Cole and Bellows and Schneider and all that. We'll get into that later. But yeah, to me, a lot of times I got to be honest with you, and I told you this before going into the off season. I kicked back. I absolutely 100% kicked back, and I knew we were in good hands. I knew Lou was steering the ship, and I said, "Have at her, Lou," and he certainly did, and he's come through in spades once again. So yeah, really
it's just it's so nice to have an organization that you feel is reliable, that they're going to make the right decisions.
Yeah,
and that's what you have, not just with Lou, but the coaching staff as well. We're in good hands.
Yeah. And then I had to talk a few people off the ledge about signing Varlamov to a 4-year contract.
We all know why that happened, though. We know why that happened. That was
tell
kind
everybody
of
why that happened.
Yeah, that was the bridge to bring Ilya in.
Yeah,
and
absolutely, 100%.
You don't make that move, it's a good chance that Ilya is still playing in the KHL right now.
Agreed.
And they know what they had in Sorokin, and they were friendly, actually friends, both Sorokin. And this has really worked out well because it was a good transition for when Sorokin came over. And he's going to, guide the way, and he's been doing that. So another move that you say to yourself, I kind of understand why they did that.
Yeah. Who could ever forget the infamous Ilya Sorokin and Varlamov fishing trip in Colorado?
That's right. That's right.
And that happened before we got Varley. So Lou probably in his mind goes, okay, I need a Russian goaltender to get that Russian goaltender here. And he's even worked the contract times out perfectly.
He has
with them to let them.
It's funny. You talk about the fishing trip, and you just say to yourself, boy, oh boy, he should go on more fishing trips and stay away from Shesterkin and driving in New York City. So Shesterkin had that accident there. And
did he? I didn't hear about that.
Yes, that's right. Shesterkin actually had an accident in the city. Had some type of injury. It wasn't too serious.
Oh, yes. Now I remember.
So, and they're good friends, those two. So more fishing trips with Varlamov, less driving with Shesterkin in New York City.
And then how about this signing? Josh Ho-Sang agrees to terms of 1-year contract.
Josh who?
And we'll just move on from there. And Lou signs up Derek Brassard on a 1-year contract, which kind of sewed up our team for this year, getting ready to go into the season. And Brass actually worked out pretty good for us in the playoffs. He did okay in that, but he was in and out of the lineup.
Kind of on the back nine of his career, but filled a need that the Islanders needed at the time. So it was a good move for the time.
Yeah. So, what the heck did I do there? Oh, that was interesting. I'm just fooling around with some technological stuff. Not good for me. So we're heading into, so basically Lou replaced Valerie Fipula with Brassard for the third line center. Is what we're looking at there. And it's pretty much the only move that we really made other than making the big push for going for Panarin, and looked like we had him at one time.
It came very close. You wonder, though, were the Islanders being used to actually facilitate the deal with the Rangers? It's possible, but if you take him by his word, the Islanders was very close in obtaining Panarin, who we all know is one of the best players in the league.
And then guess what? Josh got sent down to the minors. A whole bunch of other people too, but
go figure.
Once again, we'll leave.
Never saw that one. Never saw that one coming.
Never saw that one coming at all. And of course, throughout the year, Andrew Ladd basically never plays, so he's basically pined most of the time, except he comes back to hurt us when he does. And for the rest of the year, most of our transactions are just Aho and Koivalu coming up and down from Bridgeport throughout the rest of the year and that. And now we're looking at going into the 2019-2020 season, where we're looking like we're going to be a little bit cash strapped.
It's the cap. It's stagnant once again. Really kind of hampered the Lou and the organization to do what they wanted to do. And, it didn't help things.
No, that's for sure. We end up getting Ilya Sorokin, who finally agreed to terms. And just to let people know, I'm in a fantasy league, and I drafted Sorokin in 2014.
Wow. That's dedication.
And Sorokin just signed a 2-year contract in the KHL. Oh, he signed another 3. I don't know. Oh, man, should I drop this guy or what? So anyway, what I'm saying, the entire Islander fan base has been waiting a very long time for this guy to come over.
Patience paid off.
Yes.
And we could see this kid as a world of talent. His reflexes are really, I mean, his speed going from side to side in net is outstanding. You know, you could tell he needed a little time to learn the North American rinks. Might work on your angles a little bit with a wider rink in Europe and in Russia. So that might throw you off a little bit. But with the goaltending coaching that the Islanders had, you knew that they were going to make those adjustments. And sure enough, that paid off.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. I guess we should throw in there, before we signed Sorokin, was COVID. So there was a big to-do about going back into the bubble, and they weren't going to allow us to sign Sorokin. And we needed to sign Sorokin to entice him over here to burn off a year. So what does Lou do? Lou goes and makes it happen. And now everybody in the NHL can sign their guys for the year. That was all Lamoriello right there.
Pioneer in many ways.
Yep. Absolutely. He took care of things. So we got Ilya in the fold now. We're all excited. We're going into the bubble. Little did we know he wasn't going to play, but at least he got to know his teammates and hang out in the bubble and found out how close this team really was. That was when I really started to notice myself that we got something a little special going on here. Like, you'll always hear every team say, oh, we're a great bunch of guys, the dressing room's great and that, but there's something different about this one. I notice every single player that comes into our fold says the same thing. Everybody was very accommodating. Everybody let me in. They're a great bunch of guys. You can tell they're so close. No clicks. That's huge. And you could probably throw that back to Leo and Martin.
No question about it. Leaders in the locker room, leaders on the ice. But you can tell they would throw out videos here and there in terms of when they were in the bubble of some things that they were doing. And man, you could tell those guys were having a ball. And they really, became what you're known as today as one of the best teams in the NHL. And it goes to the people that are in the locker room. And it goes to Lou, testament to Lou in terms of who he brings in and who is shown the exit.
Agreed. One thing I accidentally skipped over because there was a bit of a lull there due to COVID was just before COVID's hit. As a matter of fact, I'm just leaving New York from my trip, and I'm getting on the airplane, and I check my phone, and the Islanders just traded for Jean-Gabriel Pageau as a deadline rental. And I'm pumped as I'm getting on that plane. I want to get off the plane and stay in New York because I want to see him play now.
Could there be a better fit? Could there be a better fit for Pageau? No. He was built to play for the New York Islanders.
Absolutely.
Guy is, and he's a Ranger killer as well in the playoffs. I mean, come on, can you get a better combination of the type of player you want to bring in? Fit in perfectly. And you think of those videos and the one where they're playing ping pong, and he was the ping pong champion.
That
and
was hilarious.
He had his bandana on.
They had a blast, those guys in there. I just loved it. The team really gels really good. But for me, probably the most important thing of the whole thing is, obviously, this is in the future of next year when we'll get to the next trade deadline. But 2 years in a row, Lou has gotten the best trade deadline player available and signed them both.
Sign them. He gets 5. Is it a 5-year contract? $5 million per year.
6 years for Pageau times 5, so $30 million
times 5.
Yeah.
Here's a guy that when he was on Ottawa, he was really the leading scorer for that season before coming in. He was playing fantastic hockey, fast, tough. He might not be big, but he's a tough
Yeah.
player. That's for sure. We saw, almost wind up fighting our friend on the
That
Capitol
was
if he tried,
hilarious.
and that was a great moment right there.
That
Come on, put
was.
him up, put him up, put him up.
Come on, Big Z, let's go.
So, good deal that they got him for, and man, he just fits in like a glove to this team.
Well, that's the whole thing when you're talking about Lou, right? Lou just doesn't look at the player. He's okay, we need this guy. Okay, that guy fits our team. Lou looks at the whole package right now. And don't think for a second before Lou traded for Pajot that he did not have him in his mind to stay as an Islander. No rental, no whatever. And he did the same thing the next year and got the best rental again in Palmieri, and Palmieri ended up signing. So I love his train of thought. I love the train of thought that we now have 4 captains on our team, 3 ex and 1 current. It's the type of player he's going for, and that's why our culture for the last 3 years has not been phased, because Lou just keeps bringing quality people, not just good hockey players, but quality people, and it's been huge for the Owls.
Can you think of a player that's more happier to be an Islander than Kyle Palmieri? You could just see the smile on his face on the ice.
Yeah, you can.
He is loving being an Islander.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's also a factor that Kyle Palmieri knows how to score goals.
Yep.
And that's one thing that was lacking for the Islanders. A wonderful deal. Let's be honest, they did give up some hefty prices for those guys.
But worth it.
However, it's worth it. And to your point, Terry, he signed them right after. He was going to make sure that he locked them in because he paid
absolutely
prices. They're now locked into the Islanders.
He signed him on the 24th of February. So that's just like almost right after the trade deadline, right?
Correct.
So, and he's already got him locked up for 6 years. So just a masterful play by Lou there. One great addition. And of course, let's be honest about it, he's one of the reasons why we did so well in the bubble.
Yeah, and you wonder too, if they had just a little more, they could have done even more there. They came very close, but you know what? They did a lot, and they're really turning a lot of heads right then and even now.
Yeah, big strides for sure. Big strides for sure. Lou is the man. I couldn't be happier with everything he's doing. And I, for one, have a lot of patience with Lou because I know Lou is always in the shadows. You know what I mean? He's always got something on the go like that. So when he's going for that rental, he's not thinking, oh, this year to win the cup. He's thinking, oh, this year to win the cup. And I want to keep this guy. Like, how can I keep him? And it's just been a masterful job. I've really enjoyed watching them work. And so when things happen and they're not looking good, I'm pretty relaxed. I know Lou's cooking something.
The Islander fans typically are always, kind of ready to jump off the bridge and start panicking. And you know what? To their defense, they had reason to be with, what happened in their history. But that's something you don't have to worry about anymore. You just don't. You know the right things are going to happen.
We were like a beaten dog, when a really friendly human comes up to them and they're just like, that was us as a fan base. We've been beaten so long that we want to question every move, everything that happened because it always went wrong for us.
Always.
All right. So basically that was really the 2 moves or the big move going into it was a weird off season for 2020 because I don't even know. Is that an off season? It wasn't an off season, really. It was
the
just
blink
a
of an
suspension.
eye.
It was a suspension of the season. So that really wasn't even an off season, but so we got Pajot and now we got Ilya ready to go for the 2020 season when we get into that one. There wasn't a whole lot of signings there. Draft, was there a draft?
There was a draft.
Islanders
had given up. They'd given up a couple of picks, so they really weren't able to draft too many guys in that draft that came up.
Right. That's probably why I forgot it.
There really wasn't many guys that they drafted. I think the first time they drafted was in the 4th fourth round, third round. I don't think they had a first, second, or third, so it could have been the fourth round.
Here we go. I got it. Okay, yeah. So draft time was in October that year. That's why I'm all screwed up here. So we got Jungkrantz, Alexander Jungkrantz at 90th overall. We picked up Alex Jeffries, William DeFore, Rajanimi. Is that right? Rajanimi. And
your guess is mine.
Henry Tikkanen, the giant goaltender. And
Yes.
and that was our draft for 2020, I guess. So that's I guess his off season.
That's his off season. Not a lot there.
Draft. There wasn't a lot happening. So
time will tell if any of those guys turn out to be anything.
Yeah, but then that's when we ran into cap crunch, and that's when we ran into the problems with Devon.
Devon Tays, unfortunately, went over to the Avs. They wound up getting a second round pick. Did they get two? That's correct. They got 2 second-round picks. And Lou wanted to put those in his back pocket because if he wanted to make another deal, he needed some assets to actually churn to the other way. Didn't actually wind up using them until later. I do remember the one disappointing, like I knew this was inevitable. And I actually dreamed of a day when we'd lose somebody good because of cap problems, because it meant we were a good team. So we knew this day was inevitable, but I know you and I both felt the same way. We would have preferred, instead of Devon Taves getting traded, Nick Leddy. But if Colorado has any scouts at all, they would have known, no, don't take Leddy, take Taves. And you know what? For all we know, maybe that was the case. Maybe Lou was trying to trade him, and they knew Nick Leddy, as good as he was in certain aspects, he had a lot of defensive deficiencies, as you and I both agree on. And maybe the good GMs out there know that, and that's why they took Taves, who had much better upside.
Yeah, I still think Leddy is addition by subtraction. And it just drives me nuts, like I'm watching all these media people. But the one thing we've discovered over time is media doesn't know everything, not even close. They're trying to follow 32 teams. We follow one team. And then we see what else is going on there. But when it comes to one team, we're in on it. And they don't really know. And they all I'm hearing about is, oh, the Islanders are going to suffer. He could skate. Great. He could skate. Couldn't do anything with the puck when he got it. I mean, he was scared shitless of going into a corner and actually getting hit. So he would always hesitate and let the opponent go in first and get the puck. And then he would come in behind him and slide a nice little soft little, if you even want to call it a check. So I wasn't, I'm going on a rant about Leddy. And we're talking about Taves.
You knew it was coming at some point, Terry, because we both agree on this. So
I guess I should have waited until next year for that one. It's so weird though, because we've had such weird off seasons these last, I'll just say the last 3 years have just been disjointed, right? Or going into a third year anyway.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so that needed to be done. We needed Siri's talking to me for some reason. She must be listening to our conversation.
She's not a Nick Leddy fan either.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. I agree, Terry. Leddy sucks. But so anyway, I'm still happy to have him on the team. Like Lou did a really good job. So it was a tough cap situation going into that small period. And Lou made it happen with just that one deal.
And it turns out that's really what they needed to be, go into the next season and actually still be competitive.
Yeah. And then so we signed a couple of minor league players, Austin Zarnik and Grant Hutton, for a couple of 2-year contracts. And Jacob Skarich gets loaned over to Finland in around November in 2020. And then Johnny Boychuk, career come to an end because of the eye injury. And that's when he had to officially retire. Ironically, for us as a team, we love Johnny. Everybody loves Johnny. But it actually, in some sort of way, actually became a beneficial thing for the New York Islanders. John was starting to go down a bit on his career, and we have used that $6 million to our advantage 2 years in a row now. So, and it was funny, if you remember when we signed Boychuk, we always said the last 2 years would be a problem in this deal, and we were right, but it turned out great for us to be able to
use it. Worked out well.
Yeah,
and it's unfortunate to what happened to him, but with the cap just staying where it is, they had to find creative ways to actually fit these players under the cap, and they were able to use that cap space put it on long-term injured reserve and use salary to replace his salary, and it's worked out great so far. So unfortunately for Johnny, great Islander, miss him deeply, but it has worked out. So
I'm glad he's still with the organization, so that's fantastic. He did a lot for this franchise. Him and Letty were the turning points when we made those two trades within half hour.
That was good.
I was just in shock.
Great moves by Garth Snow.
Yes, yes.
Those were parting gifts for him too. Yeah. I think it was a year before he left, and that really, a year, maybe 2 years, but absolutely great decisions by Garth Snow. That really helped.
And then Lou makes a trade for Dmytro Timashov from the Red Wings for future considerations. I think that's a good deal. I thought he looked pretty good in training camp this year.
Fast, very fast player.
Very fast.
Pretty good hands too, and he's going to help out Bridgeport. Again, Bridgeport, needs some offense there. He's gonna help out.
All right, and then we signed the Bars to a 3-year bridge deal, $7 million a year, January.
Yeah, again, I'm sure he was looking for more money.
Yeah.
But Lou only had so many dollars to go around.
Yeah.
But a great deal for the Islanders. And really, our most important piece when it comes to offense.
But it was a couple of days into training camp. Am I right? Or did we get him signed just before?
It was just before before camp.
Yeah, that's right. Because that makes sense. Because then we got Andy Green on a 1-year deal on the same day, and that's also when Matt Martin signed his 4-year contract at $1.5 million.
Correct.
Yeah, I thought Martin was done when he was coming back from Toronto, and boy, he sure proved me wrong. And I'm more than happy with this 4-year contract. I understand, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not just looking at you know what I'm saying. Why he's there and what the number's about and everything. It's a good contract.
You looked at how he played in Toronto and he struggled, but that wasn't Matt Martin.
There was Babcock.
Babcock did not like him, and that impacted how he played. And I was fooled by it too, because when he came back, I'm like, oh, do we really need Martin? And just like you said, Terry, it was the right decision.
Absolutely.
He had a fire lit under him, and he was happy to be back in the fold. And he really just churned back his career, and in that short period of time, to say, you know what, I'm back and I'm going to help this team. And he's been spectacular.
Oh, he's been awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Martin fell into the bad books with Babcock for sticking up for Marner. And if you remember, that's why Marner ended up being at Maddie's wedding and all that. So, which started a whole bevy of rumors that we were getting.
It did. Marner and Islander.
Yeah, so that was huge. So we got Martin signed up, and then we also signed Corey Schneider to a 1-year contract as well. Lou brings him in for the season, and we send Ho-Sang overseas. See you later, Josh.
Ooh.
Ho-Sang. Oh yeah.
See you later, Josh.
Right over my head. Okay, so we're into the season. We obviously have another good season. We in February we have Robin Salo agree to a 2-year contract. How did you feel about Robin in this training camp?
Yeah, Terry, I know you're really impressed, and you actually told me about him, and I was looking forward to seeing him in preseason. And this kid definitely turned a lot of heads.
Yeah.
Poise is the key word when it comes to him.
Yes. Barry used that last
control
night.
Skills. Oh, but it's true.
And that's something you can't teach. You cannot teach that. There's just certain people who don't panic in those situations. Only very few. He's got it in spades.
Puck protection skills it's almost innate. and this kid has them.
Oh, for
And
sure.
and he's got the wheels to go with it, and he is going to be a very productive player. Kind of reminds me. I know Kenny Johnson might not have been the greatest skater, but there's some comparables there to a Kenny Johnson who had a very good
Yes.
offense,
Yeah.
very good with the puck, good puck control, moved the puck well. Kenny Johnson turned out to be a good defensive defenseman
Did
too.
you also notice how
He has
Salo
some
got his
skills.
shot? Did you notice how Salo got his shot through as well?
Very good, exactly. Not a huge wind up, but gets
Nope.
the shot through.
Gets the shot through. Yeah. And then, okay, so now Lou's going to be put on the hot seat here. This is kind of the first time we've ever had anything really, really bad like this happen. Well, I guess Tavares when he went through the Olympics, but who cares about that guy? Our team captain goes down indefinitely on March the 12th, and we're in trouble. Losing our captain. Are we going to be able to compete this year? What are you going to do for us, Lou?
And Lou comes back through in the clutch at a certain point in the season, makes that move that they need, and sure enough, they came very close. And if they had Anders back, it was looking like he might have been able to come back right around the end.
Yeah,
we were all hoping and keeping our fingers crossed. That could have been the difference.
Man, I forgot just how big of an impact that guy's got on us until I watched his 2 preseason games there, and I go, wow, we really did miss that guy. And it's funny, like when people talk about us, they'll say, oh, and don't forget the Islanders didn't have Lee last year for the Tampa. Well, don't forget Pajot also he shouldn't have been playing. I said that at the time. I said he's just not doing nothing. He can't even win a face-off.
He was playing with one hand.
Yeah, he was playing, and you and I, we both love that hockey player that will do that. But there comes a point in time when management has to step in and say, no. And I get it. I get it because I did it myself. I did it many times myself, played when I shouldn't have been playing. And just love the passion from the boys to do that. So if you look at going into this year, now there's no saying we could have a whole different set of injuries, right? But let's just say we go in semi-healthy. We're a completely different team. And I still believe that we improved and Tampa didn't. And that is all on Mr. Lamoriello once again, as he pulls off the best deadline deal once again, 2 years in a row, and he picks up Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac.
Tremendous score, Palmieri. We don't watch the Devils as much, obviously, as the Islanders, but you see Palmieri showing up on the score sheet game in and game out. And you watch him, but you didn't really appreciate him until he came over to the team and see what he can do. And man, that kid, he knows how to score goals, and that's just what the Islanders needed at the time.
I couldn't agree more. And then after that, we make a minor trade with the 7th rounder for Braden Coburn, just in case.
Need that insurance. Injuries always happen to the D. Years ago, the Islanders, it seemed like they went through 7 defensemen a year.
Yeah, I know. So it's crazy.
They need that insurance plan, and Coburn was there. Also a good defensive defenseman. Yeah. Sure, the tail end of his career.
Well, he won the cup the year before, right? Won the cup the year before at Tampa and that. So we never did use him, but it was nice to have it in the back pocket. It didn't cost much, 7th rounder, no big deal.
Exactly. I think he got in there 1 or 2 games before the playoffs.
Yes, he did.
But I did not get into the playoffs. Yes, yeah. I believe you're right.
Yeah. And then Lou signs Reese Newkirk to entry-level contract. He was a 5th rounder of ours. And then acquire a 2nd round forward for Richard Panik on July 16th from the Detroit Red Wings for Nick Leddy. There's the first move of the offseason.
Yeah, Terry, you and I talked about it many times. We both agree it's addition by subtraction. A lot of people look at Nick Leddy's stats and say, oh boy, but he had a decent amount of stats, a lot of secondary assists. Really was never that power play quarterback that they thought he would be. No. Had a tremendous shot, underutilized shot. Tremendous ability to carry puck up the ice. Would do it maybe once every 3 games or so. Yeah. To me, Nick Leddy, you look at the Islanders right now on that team, you could point to any player on that team and they will do anything to win a hockey game. To me, Nick Leddy was not that. He was the one outcast when it came to that. He did not do anything to win a hockey game. To your point before, goes into a corner, he's not going in there to check a guy. You could even go back to the goal that they lost on that shorthanded goal, which I find unforgivable of how he played that play.
Took his sweet time, didn't he?
He sure did. Took his time getting back, gave him time and space, and then made a bad decision to go past him to allow that passing lane that got through. Sure, yeah, you know what? Palmieri has some fault there as well. So did Bailey a little bit too. But that, if Nick Leddy displays that like any other defenseman that's on the Islanders, that play never happens.
I agree. I have no time for Nick Leddy. I think the worst part for me was his hockey IQ. I have played with too many people with his hockey IQ, and there's nothing more frustrating than just remember the old jokes about the football players being a dumb jock, like, I play football, coach, right? Well, to me, a guy with no hockey IQ is the equivalent. And to me, Nick Leddy has no hockey IQ at all. It drives me nuts. He either doesn't have it or he doesn't care. One or the other.
Is one or the other. I can't figure out which one it is, but you're completely right.
So anyway, this was supposed to be the year that we were trapped in. We were supposed to be cap strapped, and there was going to be nothing we could do to get out of it. But Lou already working some magic by getting rid of Leddy for Panik, and I like the addition of Panik as an extra guy. But here's the big move on July 17th, trading Andrew Ladd, a second round pick and 2023 conditional third round pick to the Coyotes. So that was huge for us.
Enormous. No one ever thought that you're going to be able to get rid of that contract. And here you have the Godfather or the Wizard, you want to call him, the Wizard of Oz. He actually pulled off something that no one thought he can do. And that's why it goes to show you why he's one of the best GMs in the history of the NHL.
Yeah. So there we got rid of Leddy's. Leddy was 5, right? 5 a year?
5.5.
Oh yes, 5.5. And Ladd was 6. And then, so you think, wow, that's got to be enough cap room, but it's not, because Lou gets rid of another person. Well, he knew he was going to lose one or the other, and Jordan Eberle gets picked up by the expansion Seattle Kraken. So basically, there goes $15 million.
$15 million, a pretty good offensive player. But you know what? I talked about it before in terms of guys that will do anything to win a hockey game. Jordan Eberle is another one who might fit in that category of a Nick Leddy. Doesn't dig down deep enough to work as hard as the rest of his teammates. Good offensive player. His streakiness was always an issue. It appeared it was getting lengthier and lengthier on his old streaks. Yeah. And they were coming at very poor times. Yeah. So, you hate to see the talent go, but you know what? The Islanders were able to fill those voids with players that you think are going to be more of that team building and way to actually form a very good hockey team.
Right. I agree with you. And George, you'll know that I watched Eberle in junior in Regina. And so I fell in love with him at a very early time. However, being an Islander fan, I had to concede that Palmieri is the better fit than Eberle. No doubt about it. He fits our style of play so much better. And wow, talk about a difference of first lines from last year to this year, right? Komarov, Barzal, and Eberle versus Lee, Barzal, and Palmieri, and Wally in a pinch. Wow.
I think that's going to enable Barzal to get to that point per game mark that he's been hovering around.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely 100% agree. And then what do we do here? We after we lost Eberle, then we got what's with here 6 picks in 2021 draft. We selected Atu Ratu, second overall at 52nd. Now Lou pulls out a gem here because Ratu was at 1.67 year or 6, 7 months ago considered to be the first overall pick. And if you throw on top of it the lack of playing with the juniors and the minor people of playing, it's really hard to figure out who is the best. And then all of a sudden, this guy just drops like a ton of bricks. We saw something completely different in training camp, didn't we?
18-year-old kid on the ice in the NHL. And man, oh man, you always look at younger players coming in who have offensive skill and you see their flashy offensive skill. This kid was a good two-way center. He actually was responsible defensively, and he has the talent to go with it offensively. And at 18 years old to show that, boy, oh boy, they might get the steal of the draft with Aatu Ratu.
I think we definitely could have got the steal of the draft. He absolutely blew me away in the 2 games that he played. And it was like, oh man, it's too bad he's got a commitment over in Finland and has to leave. And then he goes over to Finland and they don't play him a couple of games, and they better not try that very long or they'll be getting a call from the Godfather.
You don't want the Godfather giving you a call. So it's very possible that they can re-loan him again to another team. Yeah. I think you might see that happen, but Blue's going to make sure that he is well taken care of and that he is going to continue with his progression in his career development. So we will see him probably soon enough. I would not be surprised you might see him on that team next year somehow.
I thought it was possible too, but it's almost like there's no room at the end. We pretty much got everybody sold up pretty good. And we talk about this year being a tough year, being the cap and how Lou got out of it and whatnot. Next year is supposed to be a much easier year for us because we're losing some contracts and things like that. But mind you, we'd also planned those in to be the lad ones and all that too. So it's not as good as it once looked, but still going to be an easier cap year for us next year. So we also draft Tristan Lennox in the 3rd round and Cameron Berg in the 4th round and Lucas, I guess, in the 5th round, and Alexei Malinin in the 6th round, and Thomas Machu in the 7th. So I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about those guys.
Yeah, you and me both, Terry.
Oh, okay, good. Then we'll just zip along past that. And then a key moment in for the Islanders is signing Adam Pelech to an 8-year contract.
You and I have talked so much about Alan Pelech over the years. I might be his biggest supporter out there, and I have been since day one. You can tell from day one, Terry, that he knew how to play defense. And to me, when you look at a defenseman, that is the biggest priority. Can you play defense in your own end? And he's always had those skills. He's got that long reach. He plays his angles perfectly. He's a very good skater. He's tough in those corners. You go into a corner with Adam Pelech, 99 times out of 100, you're not coming out with that puck.
Yeah.
He is such a big, huge piece to this team. You can argue maybe the most valuable player on the team.
Oh, for sure.
You see it when he was out of the lineup. Just look at the record.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we didn't do too well with Adam out of there, but I think we're lucky because we're going to get one of those things that Pelech's an excellent defenseman, Pelech's an excellent defenseman, but you combine them and you've got, it's almost like a little bit of a superpower. You know what I mean? When you put them together, it's like they even though they're good players, they get even better being together.
We saw it for 2-3 years now in terms of how well they can play together as a tandem. And finally, this offseason, you started hearing NHL, so-called experts, actually give them their fair due to say, maybe they're the top pairing in the NHL.
Remember Pierre Maguire? He was going on and on about Pelech. We're like, shut up, dude. We got to sign this guy.
Exactly. And look at what Lou did. Look at the contract he was able to get done for Pelech.
Let's talk about all of them now, if you want to go there, because let's be honest here. This is the real deal. Players, all of them doing the hometown discount. They're all buying in. And this is the difference. And this is how you can, I'll be honest with you, George, I can't remember a team once we get this roster together and get through this little off season here, which we've already done, but I'm talking about in podcast terms. But when you look at this roster, there are no holes. There are
None.
no holes.
None.
If they stay healthy, and our depth is insurmountably grown since once upon a time we would be bringing up the Cole Bardreaux and things like that. Now we're gonna have guys like Michael Del Cole and who knows. Anyway, really good NHL players. But this is the first time that I see any team, like you might find somebody on a certain team take a hometown discount, but you're not seeing everybody taking a hometown discount. And they've all bought in, and there's no doubt that Pelech did that. And there's no doubt that this was done by Lou Lamoriello, because he created this culture by bringing in Leo Komarov and Matt Martin. And people have a tendency of forgetting that when the casual fan, when they just want to bitch about the team for a while and whatnot, you're missing all the finer details of everything that Lou's done. He's got these guys bought in that they love each other. They want to take less money for each other. They want to stay together. They want to win a cup together. That's the most important thing. They want a cup together. And if you look at, we have a certain core of players, the Cizikas, Clutterbuck, Martin, the Nelsons, the ones that have been here a long, long time and have been part of that core that want to do it together. And that is Lou.
It's Lou. And to your point before, Lou makes sure that he's bringing in the right people. You're not going to have, can you imagine if Tavares was still here?
No.
He came up to a contract year. You think he's taking less money?
Not a chance.
He made sure that he had the right people that want to stay together and win that cup. Yeah. That's what they're there for. That's the goal. And they will not take anything less but winning that cup. And they took, like you said, they took less money to stay here to accomplish that.
History will point out that John Tavares killed the Toronto Maple Leafs. They had an excellent future going on, and you can say whatever. People say, well, San Jose offered John more money and he took less with Toronto. He only took 11. But the point of the matter is, if you're John Tavares, you have to take 9. You know what I mean? Because it was just a rolling. It just compounded everything. All of a sudden, Tavares getting 11. Well, I'm Austin Matthews, the new superstar. I think I should get a little bit more. Okay, 11.6. Well, I'm Mitch Marner. Well, technically I got more points than John last year, so I should at least be getting paid what he is. 11. There we go, right? And it just snowballed.
You see any of those arguments with Lou Lamoriello? It just doesn't happen. That doesn't exist because the right people are there.
That's right. I saw. I made a comment on one of the things somebody was talking about, how about the lease with Marner and that he deserved all that. And I said, he didn't deserve that. There's no way. I said Tavares didn't. I didn't want to sign Tavares for any more than $9 million. That was my cap with that guy. Anything more than that for that guy, and he was going to hurt your cap. And yes, he's still a good player, but if you want to build a winner, look at Lou. Just take a look at the blueprint. It's right there for everybody to see.
Exactly.
So where were we? I guess we had the draft. Did we? We're just talking about the draft players. Okay. So then we signed Big Z to a 1-year contract.
Big Z is going to really help when it comes to Dobson. It's going to be a very nice compliment. We've seen Dobson play the last couple of years. You can't deny the offensive skill. Needs to learn the defensive game a little more. Who better than Zdeno Chara can you learn from to play defense? And so they complement each other really well. And I think that's going to go a long way. I really do. And
the thing that's good about Big Z is, like, Dobby's not exactly the smallest kid around either, is showing him how to use that stick work as a big guy and stuff like that. So I agree with you. I think 100% he could help Dobson even more so than Green. Green kind of,
I was just going to say, not to take away from what Green has done.
No, absolutely not. Like he's giving him all the other stuff that he needs in that, but Big Z can show him how a big defenseman can defend and a little bit better than maybe Green can. No, I've been very happy with all our guys. It's amazing just how many of these guys have taken Lou on his word that I'll do that. But man, when Lou speaks, it's true.
No question.
All right. So where does that lead us to? Okay. And then that leads us to Zach Parise also coming on the fold on another. So basically, we got Chera and Parise coming in on the $750,000 contracts. They both have possible $750,000 bonuses, really easy bonuses to make 10 games, 15 games, and 20 games. But from my understanding of the cap, is that you can take that bonus money and bringing over to next year's cap and apply it to next year's cap. Now, we did the same thing with Andy Green this last year, and his bonuses were supposed to come over to our cap. But since we had cap room left over, then we could use that on that part of the cap. So we actually used what was going to come over to this year, last year. So it didn't carry over. And I'm thinking Lou's probably going to find a way to do the same thing with Chera and Parise's bonus money.
I'm glad that they're the ones figuring that stuff out and not me, because I don't think I could figure that out.
It is crazy. That's why I knew all this stuff was going on behind the scenes. And I knew why, as you know, trying to promote this podcast, I'm just recently on Twitter, and I vowed that I would never get on Twitter. And I'm just seeing some of the stuff that people, they just don't understand. They don't. Yeah, how many times
there's so much that goes behind
it. Easy. You just send Komarov down and you keep Del Cole and Bellows up. And I go,
doesn't work that way.
You're not thinking about the cap. You're not thinking about the cap at all. And let's talk about the cap for a second. Lou Lamoriello, when you take $81,500,000 and he can max it out to $6,400, that is absolutely pretty amazing. As you can see, my wife here crawling in the background as she's trying to get through on my podcast and not read.
She wants to talk Islanders as well.
That's right.
Everybody does, Terry.
I know. We're the talk of the town these days, and I really think we're going to be a lot more exciting this year. I think we're going to score a lot more goals and everything like that. So I mean, it's going to be more so than ever by committee for sure.
No question. There, as you mentioned before, the depth that they have on this team, from line 1 to line 4 on your offense, line 1 to line 3 on your D, and your 2 goaltenders, it's just the best that they've had really since decades.
Yeah.
This team is built to win, and they're going to be a bitch to play against.
Yeah.
No one wants to play the Islanders anymore. They really don't.
No.
They used to not want to play the Islanders because it was a boring game.
Yeah.
And now they don't want to play them.
Yeah, I've been hearing
going to be a bitch to score against.
I haven't been hearing that a lot lately anymore. The boring comments. I haven't been hearing that. So that's kind of nice to get rid of.
And how could you call a team with Matt Barzal on it boring?
I know. Impossible. Impossible. So that pretty much gets us up to date now. We've pretty much covered it all. It's been a lot longer podcast. I knew it was going to be a long podcast anyway, but have you got any final thoughts on Lou Lamoriello being with the organization?
Yeah, so Lou is he's getting up there in age, but he's certainly not tarnishing any of his skills when it comes to GMing. And the Islanders are really just taking full advantage of it as an organization. Islanders fans should be thanking the lucky stars that their GM is Lou Lamoriello and their coach, Barry Trotz.
It just blows my mind that they went with the Dubas there with the analytics, and that they had the man right in their hands. Let
him go. Let him go.
But they also wouldn't let him do what he wanted to do either, because Shanahan was over top of him all the time. But give kudos to Malkin, and we have to give 100% kudos to Malkin and Ledecky for making this all happen. This isn't possible without them. We talked about how Garth and Mike were strapped. Lou's had none. He's full rings. Go at her.
These guys have come in. They've probably lost a lot of money in the last couple of years.
For sure.
The building an arena. And they're telling, like you said, Lou, you have what it takes to go out and build the team that you need to.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way with me as an Islander fan. And it sure does for every player and fan and the whole entire organization. They have that behind them, that great ownership. Means a lot. We've known how important that is over the years. So it's been super helpful to have those two owners that are behind us.
And basically, we still don't know how the dust is going to settle for this offseason, do we? We don't actually know what our actual lineup's going to be, because you could do things now like send Komarov down if you wanted to and things like that. So, the dust still hasn't settled here, but first time since 1983, I believe, I truly believe that we have a real shot of winning the Stanley Cup this year.
It's cup or bust this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It won't be another happy Eastern Conference Finals. And even if we get to the next step, which is just getting to the Stanley Cup Finals, losing won't be enough either this time. It won't be, okay, you took one more step. Now next, no, because the window only lasts so long, right? And you got to go for it.
It's the Islanders, I think, are the third oldest team in the NHL right now. So, guys are signed, and they still have a couple. That window can close pretty quickly. So it's you got to make sure you take advantage of it.
But if you take a look how it's built, there's another young core down with the Islanders. You know what I mean? There's the Barzals, the Beauvillier. Yeah, we're old, but we can also, 3-4 years from now, we can find another few old guys to take these old guys' spot and keep cruising. So I still see the window for the Isles being wide open right now.
Let's hope so. But this year is going to be a real test for them. Can they get to that next step and actually win it? We think that they're capable of doing it, and we're hoping so.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm definitely interested to see. I want to see what their regular season success is going to be this year, because we've always said this team isn't built for the regular season; they're built for the playoffs. But I went and took a look at the rest of the teams in the division. We're the best team. We are the best team in the division, and everybody.
You can make an argument. You can make an argument. Carolina is going to be very good this season.
You could, but they got a little bit worse than last year.
A little bit. I still don't understand what they did with their goaltending situation. That made no sense to me at all.
Losing Hamilton is huge.
Enormous. It produced so many goals for them last year. So much offense. So you're right. They are impacted by it. Still a good team. I don't think as good as the Islanders, though.
No, I agree. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. I will say this: my grade for Lou Lamoriello since his grade is A+. That's it. I mean, he's won 2 GM of the Year awards, and he is well on his way to a third in a row. I mean, what he pulled off this year with the cap gymnastics and everything was amazing. I love how the wife comes in here and ruins my lighting and everything right at the end of the video. So
I can still see you, Terry.
Yeah, I know.
Still a handsome guy.
61 and decaying is what I am now, all broken down from hockey and everything. Well, George, I want to thank you for coming on to this podcast. I think we probably got to be wrapping it up, or we don't want to lose everybody's interest. Who knows how many we've already lost. But anyway, I want to thank you very much. I know how busy of a guy you are. How exciting is it to do my first podcast with a guest from literally going coast to coast and country to country? So from Canada West to States East, it's right across the continent here. So it was awesome. You did a great job. Great input. Thanks very much.
Harry, this was a lot of fun. I can't thank you enough for having me. And, I can't wait for you to come back out to Long Island where we can go out again and actually go to UBS Arena.
I'm going to have to see that pretty little place behind you. I was thinking, the most important thing was to see the barn, right? I wanted to see the actual spot that Nystrom scored the goal. I wanted to see all that stuff and look around. But as I'm watching this baby get built, I'm going, I think I got to see that place.
You find the time, you come here, you could stay here. We're looking forward to you coming back out, Terry.
All right.
Thank you very much. Keep up the great work with the podcast. It's awesome. I will be following every single game.
I'm on to editing now. I'm going to have to buy an editor or something.
You're going to have to edit a lot of this one.
No, I'm going to let most of it go for sure. It was good. I think, for sure. All right, George. Well, I'm going to let you go. Thanks very much. Looking forward to a great season for the Islanders. I think we got good things coming.
Agreed.
All right. So all you people out there, you all take care and peace out.
Terry, that was fun.